Once you win it, and you've got to go all the way to the end.
Lando into the final corner, his first win of the championship. Lando across the line to win in China.
Because you commit yourself to such a level where there is no compromise. You give everything you have.
The strategy paid off. He had one of the best hits I've ever seen on the medium tires. Nick Bell wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
Nathan was the final chicane. Rudy's trying to go for it on the inside. There's still both wheels of Megan Wills. Old School's gone round.
Oh my word!
And you need more than anything a very clear mind to understand exactly when is the moment to be aggressive, when is the moment to be calculated.
He spun. Brendan's
Oh, wing image. Oh, Brendan's out.
He's out of race. Oh my God, he's out of race.
When you are under a lot of pressure, in a critical moment, in a championship or in a particular race, it's the one that can put together the combination between aggressivity and calculating things that will get the best result.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the League of Europe. We are here for the pre-season race. Once again, for season number 7, not season 6 anymore. We are now on to the new season for I suppose the second season of this game. My mic does sound a bit different, but it is myself, Jacob, taking you guys through this once again for this season and joined alongside me. I think I would start to say is a little bit of a D2 legend. It is Daka once again for this season. Dan, how are you doing tonight, my friend? I haven't actually spoken to you since before Christmas.
I don't think so. I think the last time was the charity event, probably the last time we spoke to each other. And I appreciate the comments. Yeah, this is now my 5th consecutive season doing comms for Division 2, so yeah, it's becoming a very integral part of my life, I think, as D2 comms. But we'll look past that though, and we will look towards this first pre-season race. Of course, it's going to be our first chance to see how these guys all stack up next to each other. And of course, as in D2, every single season, there's different dynamics. Of course, we've looked through it, and roughly half of the grid has carried over from last season's D2. But of course, there's all these new kind of cats being thrown amongst the pigeons here, because we have drivers coming down from D1, up from D3, and drivers that are brand new to the league all stepping in here, which is going to make this very interesting to see how, because it's not just the direct recreation of the last grid we've had in D2, there's a lot of new faces here, and it's going to be really exciting to see how they all stack up.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And obviously, if everybody wants to actually have a look at what the grid is looking like, I am just popping that up on screen for you guys right now. So, yeah, the grid goes as follows. You have got, for this season, we have got XL Larkin moving down from D1 to D2. Car Mentalist, obviously, right from D2 from last season. Same with TDB, Zadama and Gary. June coming down from D1. So they're, I think, the only two that came down from D1 for this season. And then we've got Nolan, Tibos and Slash from last season. Forza Brendan, the Division 3 champion of last season. I am definitely looking forward to seeing how he's going to get on for this season, especially the little Irish rivalry between himself and Gary. That I cannot wait for. Rudy, Carwin, Rob, of course, coming up from Division 3 last season as well. Emily Scream from D2 last season. Tin Can and Funky Chicken, AJ Wuhan and Nathan JB, all from Division 3 from last season as well. And you got Kriko from D2 last season, and then two new faces, I believe, to the league. I haven't heard of them before, but we've got IRT Bumpier, I think I said that right, and Emily Topi, again, I think I said that right, I'm not too sure. And then the reserves for this season are Ariel Ferg, Peter Dornbau, Ariel Calvin, CBI Mr. BT, Emily Haynes, Josh Sydney 06, and Jake Marsh GP. I think Emily Haynes actually just left the league earlier on today, so there are just those, I think, 6 or 7 reserves in Division 2. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go on for this season. A few guys that say that there are the full times on that left side will be down as a reserve for this evening, just because we want to try and get everyone's pace tested out as much as possible. So qualifying is already just starting, so let's just go straight on board with that. QRT Simon, by the way, is TDB. He did have a bit of a name change, so he's looking like he's back in the Alfa Romeo for this season. But we've got 19 drivers for tonight, and yeah, as I said, I think this is going to be quite an interesting one, Dan, don't you?
Oh yes, certainly. We're going to see how these guys are all going to stack up. Of course, thanks to note about the pre-season race, there's two main differences between this and regular season races. The first being, as you can tell by the conditions out there, completely clear weather, which should be a good comparison of pace between all of the divisions, since they're all on equal, on a level playing field in terms of conditions, and also there'll be no safety cars during the race. So again, it's going to be a good way to compare because of the other pre-season races we have tonight, see if anyone needs to be bumped up, bumped down. So I guess one of the things we've got to be looking out for is to see, hopefully, that there's no outliers in terms of pace, people that are far too quick or far too slow for the division. So, I mean, the league organisers, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Jack, do a fantastic job every season of just being able to, you know, sort out the placements, get them all set up, and I don't have a lot of faith that this is also going to go very well, and we're going to see a highly competitive grid once again.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, D2 every single season has always performed, even since in Season 2. Every single time Division 2 has always been so close. I think, in fact, last year, last season, I think is probably the one where it actually was the most spread out, surprisingly enough, because of Knuth winning that at the second to last race. Usually it boils down to the last race of the season. So, yeah, that's what I think that's just made that a bit more interesting. But our first lap for Season 7 in Division 2, QRT Simon, aka TDB, is starting his lap. Dan, fancy taking us through it?
Yes, certainly. So you see him now heading into this brilliant S section, and full commitment is adamant through this part of the track. Then swinging it in to the left-hander there. You can see a 24.9 is the time for the first sector. A little bit of oversteer, the square of the car just sliding around the Alfa Romeo, who was of course one of the fastest drivers in Division 2 last season, and really the only three drivers you could argue that were quicker than him last season have all been moved up to D1. So you sense that the door is open for him to really dominate qualifying. But of course, again, there are those two drivers moving down from D1 and a whole host of competitive competitors out there to make a challenge. Simon on the brakes then, you can see getting it in to turn 12, of course trying to get as close to that curb on the inside as you can here now to this very technical part of the track. You're feathering the throttle all the way around here as you open up turn 15. Wide entry line is the key here, swooping it in, picking up third gear and then fourth as you apply the throttle into this brilliant high speed 16, 17 and 18 triple apex right hander, then flicking it to the left of 19, hitting the curb on the inside and the outside but just over the white line. And now it's going to be an early invalidation for Diamond. So of course, one of the fastest qualifiers in the division we'd expect to see not able to get that lap. And Ariel Calvin reserve up to the line at 31.2, and I have to say, for a banker lap, that's a very strong effort from the Alpine man.
Certainly is. Gary's just gone into P2 with a 31.585 as well. And then a few other guys coming across the line. Funky Chicken with a 32.7 on a set of the medium tyres. And then a few other guys, as I said, just making their way across the line. Nathan, I think, just starting his lap. As Rudy goes on pole so far, 0.08 of a second faster than Calvin. Of course, Calvin being moved up from Division 3 last season. XL Larkin goes into P3 from Division 1 last season. So a bit of a dynamic on that one. Calvin actually so far best in XL Larkin as well. Zadama into P5 with a 32.076. I'm expecting that to get a little bit quicker as well. And then, yeah, as I said, a lot more guys just putting times on the board. Carmentalist with 33.0 and a few other guys coming across the line. Creco at 31.9 and I believe Brendan just coming across the line as well. Puts it on pole so far with a 31.1. We thought Calvin and Rudy's laps were pretty impressive. Brendan, well, Division 3 champion from last season, he's really trying to prove for it in Division 2 for this season already from the get-go.
And his Division 2 debut, so anticipated in LOE. If you look through his LOE career, Season 5 Division 4 champion, Season 6 Division 3 champion. No one's ever done that before. And so now as he moves up to Division 2, he's always improving. If you notice that about Brendan, he has continued to consistently improve and get quicker all the way through his time in LOE. And now we're going to see him right there in Division 2. And of course, well, we have only had just about half the drivers get laps on the board and even less get competitive laps on the board. It says a lot for Brendan to be on that pace straight away, 31-1 coming through now. But you can see the time starting to come in. Of course, one of the things we've got to look out for, how close these guys are all going to end up. I know most of the other divisions have been very tight, as you'd expect, so it's going to be interesting to see how things are going to unfold. But yeah, Forza Brendan to the top. And in terms of raw speed, people were saying this last season, even when he was in D3, he could have still been one of the top drivers in D2, just in terms of speed alone. He's phenomenally quick, and it's going to be interesting to see how he compares when some of the big hitters of Division 2, and of course the drivers coming down from D1, really get the hammer down and start to get the lap times down. But I think Joom, who is one of the drivers, of course, that came down from D1, has been in D2 before, coming round in the AlphaTauri, and of course renowned as a qualifying man, so let's see what he can do then as he comes towards the end of his lap.
Certainly can. I'm actually just going on board with Emily's screen because he's just coming across the line to finish his lap and goes into P8 with a 31.8. But yes, June from Division 1 from last season was in Division 2 the season before. The final corner unfortunately invalidates, and that would have popped him into P2 by 0.003 of a second up ahead of Rudy. So that was a 31.2 dead from the Spaniard, and unfortunately for him, that invalidation literally on the final corner has just cost him for that. Ariel Nolan, one that I'm not going to lie, I said this before the season even started, I feel like I might have an outside shot of actually potentially winning the championship this season. Bit of an odd one, but I think from the performances that we saw at him at the end of last season, as I said, I feel like he has got a bit of an outside shot of doing pretty well around, well, not around the circuit, but around the tracks for Division 2 for this season. So Nolan, for me, I don't know, at the moment he hasn't validated on his lap time, so unfortunately for him, not going to see much more of that lap. We're right on board with someone that got promoted, from Division 3 last season, of AJ Wuhan. Now, I've also heard quite a bit of AJ from other leagues as well, and he's rapid. So if he is as rapid as people were saying, I'm expecting him to out-qualify. Well, I'm expecting him to catch himself on pole from this if he's as quick as people were expecting.
Well, let's see how that is going to unfold. It's AJ Wuhan onto the bricks, heading in to this very tricky technical third sector, and as he comes over that line, really opening up turn 13 to try and keep that momentum as best you can. Again, you're feathering that throttle out wide to turn 15 then. Try and swoop it in, get that late apex, and of course, no mistakes applying that throttle. It is critical not to be making those errors. Now, swinging it through, flat out, through turn 18, now into turn 19. You can see him there, opening up. Bit of understeer though, it must be said, in the car. Not able to quite get it hooked up now to the final corner at turn 20. We do get Tin Cannon in the lobby. AJ Wuhan to the line, a 31A. But I think there's a lot more time in that lap, because that, to be honest, that last sector and probably laps before that did look a little bit scruffy. We'll expect more in the runs to come.
Yeah, no, I expect that as well. As Timon, or TDB, he also just pops into P13. Same time as what Carmentalist did on the set of the mediums, a 33.034. So TDB, I know for this season he has turned off his ABS, and somehow that's dropped him probably by about 0.5 of a second. So I suppose that shows how OP ABS can be, but I suppose we'll see in the season where he may end up improving. Mr. BT was just making his way through the second to last corner, but unfortunately for him, he invalidated at that second to last corner. So a 31.933 would have put him, into P11, sorry, just up ahead of Zadama. So a lot of guys coming out on their second laps for this session. Of course, we've got 8.5 minutes, or just over 8.5 minutes left to go. And at the moment, Forza Brendan, Division 3 champion from last season, is the one that's on pole position, and he's currently on another outlap. So I'm intrigued to see if you can try and beat that time, because that is a very good time to start off with.
I think we can expect the times to start approaching the 1:30 range in these last few minutes. Rudy going into the third sector, peg oversteer though, he was just up on his time, but I think that may have offset the Aston Martin driver. Also, of course, and he does back off, a race winner last season, or I'd say an odd track race winner, didn't keep that win in the end, but he proved his raw speed, and if he could put that together on a more regular basis, he could certainly have a shot. There's a lot of drivers here that are very, very quick, but there are doubts over how well of a season they can put together, and it's going to be interesting to see how they can adapt to that. Carmen Robb is coming out of the last corner, a good lap, goes fourth in the end at a 31.2, so the time's beginning to stack up then. And I think one thing to note here, as opposed to the D1 drivers last season coming through, the D3 drivers from last season that have got promoted, I know it's still early days, but at the moment these guys really setting the world alight at the moment.
I was about to say, D3 boys are representing at the moment. Straight up into first, into third, into fourth. Where Calvin as well came from Division 3 last season as well. So the guys in first, third and fourth, all coming up from Division 3 from last season. It's just absolutely insane. Nathan in 7th as well. And AJ Wuhan in 10th. As he said, I think there's a lot more time in that for AJ for this session. But a few other guys just making their way across the line. Zydemus just gone up in a P8 with a 31.6. I believe there's an Alpine that's gone very wide to just start his first lap. I believe that might be Ferg, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not Ferg. It's the other one, which I believe is Emily Screamers. Larkin on pole so far with a 31.0. So Division 1 driver from last season trying to show, and of course Division 2 champion from 2 seasons ago now, showing why he wants to try and get himself back up into that Division 1 as well. Just looking around, a lot of people looks as if they've been validated on their lap times. So there's one person that I know who hasn't, and that is Forza Brendan, and he's in fact coming into the pits. So yeah, we'll completely ignore that and just see who else are coming out on laps at the moment, because so far 5 people haven't set laps yet.
Yeah, it looks like they're having a difficult time of it, Jack, at the moment. Of course, there is difficulty, but within the white lines here. That's just the very nature of the track. It can certainly throw you off if you get it just a little bit wrong. So let's keep an eye out to see if there's anyone. I think Funky Chicken is coming near the end of a flying lap, hooking that into the apex. It just keeps it within the white lines, and Mercedes to the line goes 7th on a 31.4. So solid enough lap, putting himself into the middle of the pack then. I think Emily Scream is further back on a lap then, as Tidcan does back out of the session. Of course, will have glitched out, I imagine. Just based on the issues that we have on Codemasters games, so he's going to start from the rear of the field, not the very rear of the field at the moment, because there's still, as you mentioned, drivers that have yet to get those times on the board. Ferg, Nolan, Hume, and Mr. BT. Emily Scream, he's lagging all over the place for me. I'm not sure what's happening there, but he does improve slightly, goes to 10th place. But I'm not sure if you were watching that, Jack, but his car, unfortunately, jumping all around the place, so hopefully that is going to alleviate and he can actually have a good connection for the race and for the season ahead, of course.
Yeah, no, of course. Calvin with a 30.932, the first one into the 30s, and so just right on board with the Spaniard of June as he makes his way up towards the line of 31.306 for the Spaniard from Division 1, of course, from last season, and again, quite a legend within LOE and PRL as well. So, yes, I did just mention those 3 letters on the stream. I am so sorry. But, yeah, into P6 at the moment, 31.3. But Calvin, I know from last season, as I'd like to call him, he was probably one of the bigger quali merchants, along with Carwin Rob. I'm sure they don't mind me saying that. But, yeah, Calvin was definitely one of them up there, and I know his 1-lap pace is stupidly quick. It's just his race pace does let him down a little bit. So hopefully that quali pace for him does transfer over to the race pace for later on in this race. So I suppose we shall wait and see. As a lot of guys into the pit lane now. I don't know why it's just this is yellows in sector 3. I think that's just Funky Chicken coming into the pits. But yeah, we've just got under 5 minutes left now of this session. And Calvin, like I said, is the one that has just taken the pole so far. He did 2 laps on those softs though. So he will have a little bit of a tyre disadvantage in comparison to the rest of the field when it does come on to the actual race, as I'm running on board with AJ Wuhan trying to improve on his lap time.
Yeah, certainly further through the lap, so let's see how that is going to unfold. AJ Wuhan heading in to that 3rd sector now. I think Diamond is just a little bit further ahead, so we'll see how his lap time unfolds as well. At the Alfa Romeo one, AJ Wuhan coming out of turn 15 now. Diamond is out of the final corner on the track, goes for 31.1. He's still adapting to that lack of ABS, so that's a pretty good time then for Diamond then, the Dutch driver. Now AJ Wuhan setting up that final corner up to the curb on the outside of turn 20, crosses the line, goes 11th on a 31.5 out there on the track at the moment. So that is going to be a bit of a lull in terms of lap times at the moment coming in. We haven't seen massive improvements really from the bankers, so there's certainly a lot more time to find here. It's a reasonably close grid. Calvin on top at the moment. Again, brilliant stuff. You mentioned his quali pace, 30.9 goes to the top, but I would go as far as saying that just about every driver in this field has a lot of time to find, and I think hopefully if these guys can put it all together, you're going to see those improvements and the times really start to come down in these final 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, we certainly will. As a few more guys just coming out on out laps now. 3 minutes, like you said, left to go, and a lot more guys going to start making their way out of the pits. I'm right on board with Ariel Nolan, still yet to put a time on the board, and he did just say in the chat a second ago that he got called upon 15 minutes ago and has had 0 practice. So these are being his first laps around USA for the new year, and we're just right on board with him now because he's on what it looks like will be his final lap. And as I said, no time on the board, so he's really got it all to do to make sure he doesn't invalidate his time. And as I say, that completely cuts across the second part of the S's. So, yeah, unfortunately for Nolan, he might try and go again. If he's got enough fuel, he could definitely give it another go. But if not, then I think that might be his time, and he might be starting down in P18, maybe even P19 at the most. So, yeah, unfortunately for Nolan, that's his lap time done. And as I said, a few other guys just making their way around. Diamond actually coming back into the pits to retire from the session. He knows he hasn't got enough time left to come back around. So P4 is the best of where he's going to get. Who else is just starting a lap? His teammate, in fact, Nolan's teammate, Nathan JB, just coming around turn number 1 now. So, of course, Division 3 driver, as I said, from last season, now making his way through turn number 2, coming up towards the S section, right on board with him as he just makes it through the S's, very nice and very clean through there. Quick little downshift and as I said, a very quick upshift as well. Now coming up the hill, I know a lot of drivers have managed to drop it there, and as I say that, he's one of them that has dropped it there. A little bit of wing damage for him as well, and unfortunately for Nathan, he could have tried to go again if he didn't get that wing damage, but that wing damage now means that the best he is going to get is P10, a 31.491 for Nathan. So yeah, a lot of other guys now just sort of starting their laps, Gary being one of them, and the other Irishman, of course, the Division 3 champion of Forza, Brendan, also starting on his lap. So we're right on board with Brendan. Dan, what do you think of this qualifying session so far? Before anything, it's getting quite close in here.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting to see how things are going to unfold, of course. Our first chance to really see how these guys all stack up in terms of raw speed. So let's see how things will end up in the dying moments of this qualifying session. So let's have a look and see who's furthest along and where the first times are going to come from. So let's see who is going to be first up. I think Ariel Fergus quite far along. Of course, no lap time so far, but a very quick first 2 sectors there. 101.6 is fairly good for the Alpine man. Really aggressive into turn 19. Just about keeps it within the white lines. Now setting up turn 20 then. Just misses that sausage curb then. Getting out onto the outside curb. Crosses, goes 7th. 31.2 is the time on the board from the Alpine man. Nathan JB does dive to the pit lane. Behind then is Forza Brendan, who's just slightly up on his time. Can he find a bit more to jump Larkin? Maybe even get towards Calvin. Out of the final corner is the Mercedes. Crosses the line. Goes second. Just under a 10 down on Calvin himself. Just up the road. Gary crosses just barely. Messes out on the improvement. Ariel Carmentalist is behind, and of course not renowned for qualifying pace. Crosses the line. That's a good lap though. Goes 4th. Puts himself right up there. Of course, Nolan, his teammate from last season, only 18th. Not able to put the lap together in the end. Then behind is the Haas. Carwin Rob to the line. Crashes over the line. Invalid. Will be a Rudy goes to the top. Just barely 4 thousandths in it, and Calvin is 2 thousandths down through that middle sector, so it's going to be very, very tight. Jim is on a flyer as well, just misses the apex in the last corner. Is it going to be enough to get pole? Yes, it is! Jim, the legend of PRL and LOE, as you said, goes up to the top by just 7/800ths of a second. Is there anything more on the table? Larkin behind is invalid on his lap. Behind Zenema backed off. Tope is still going on there. Mitsubishi 31.5 is the lap from him then, as we see now to the line. Emily Tope, what can he do? Down in 18th, crosses the line, still remains in 18th then. 31.7 is the time. I think that is going to be it then. Jim, who struggled for form all the way through this session, finds it at the end, goes to the top with a 30.8, just fractionally clear of Rudy 1973, and I think that makes a statement for one of the fastest drivers we've seen in LOE. When he puts it all together, he really, really delivers on a lap that wasn't even perfect by his standards. He goes to the top. If he can put clean races together, you cannot overlook Jim in this championship, not in the slightest.
That's the thing, what you've literally just said there. If he puts together clean races, June, I'm not going to lie, he is notorious for picking up penalties, and a lot of people in the league will agree with that. So if he does managed to have a clean race, then June, yeah, quite easily, I could say could move straight back up into Division 1. I'm not going to lie, Division 3 fastest lap was actually quicker than the Division 2 one, which is interesting enough. So, yeah, I think that's definitely one we need to have a look at straight after this race. But, yeah, June chucking that straight onto pole position with Rudy in second. Calvin from Division 3 last season with Brendan alongside him. These two were teammates last season as well, so this is going to be a very interesting rivalry if they're not, of course, teammates for this season. Larkin in 5th, Carmentalist lined up alongside him in 6th, Diamond in 7th, Harman, Robin 8th, Fergie 9th, Gary in 10th, Creco in what I like to call poor man's pole position in 11th, Funky Chicken 12th, Scream 13th, Nathan 14th, AJ 15th, BT in 16th, Zaldam at 8th, 17th, Popey in 18th, Nolan in 19th, and then Tin Can, of course. Yeah, it came in quite late into the session, so he was not allowed to set a lap, and is starting at the very back of the grid. But wow, what an end to that qualifying session. Joom showing why he should be put back up into Division 1 from the looks of things.
Well, in terms of raw speed, you cannot argue with that. But of course, he still has to lead from pole position. This is a very valuable part of the skill set, and we're going to be evaluating this based on this race. So let's see how things are going to unfold. If any drivers are listening, again, just a quick message: do not quit the race, even if your race has been a disaster. We need to see, of course, we need to get that idea of where everyone stands in terms of pace. I imagine, I'm not actually sure, but I'm guessing we're looking for race directors as well. Just get the idea of the pace as well, so we can see wherever everyone stacks up in terms of the speed. But hopefully it's clean for everyone and we can all have a race that goes to plan. No safety cars, of course, coming through as they get off the line. So Joom on pole position, and I think the story here, we have both D1, drivers relegated from D1 and drivers promoted from D3. Both of them showing up, you have to say, to some extent, showing up last season's D2 grid.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that's actually sort of put in contention with that is Rudy. Like, Rudy putting it in the P2, in between all of them as well. Commentalist, of course, and same with TDB. But other than that, well, I mean, Funky Chicken and Nathan and AJ are all sort of down in the bottom half, but they're going for the reverse strategy, so they'll have a little bit more of an advantage towards the end of the race. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like in the top 10, majority of them are made up from, from Division 1 dropping down, Division 3 from last season as well. Only ones, like I said. Gary in the top 10, Fergie's a new driver, so wasn't too sure mainly on his pace. TDB, Commentalist and Rudy. So yeah, it's... well, I think this division's going to be very, very spicy, because I don't think it was how we was expecting it to turn out, but I think this is going to be a very, very spicy season, to say the least. And if obviously no drivers get promoted/demoted, then I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go.
Yeah, certainly, as they lead their way around the formation lap. Joom is going at quite a pace, it must be said, leading the field around. Of course, outside the top 10, well, the vast majority going for that alternate strategy. Strategy isn't too complicated here. Should be a soft to medium or a medium to soft, vice versa. The softs, though, aren't too great here. I know overheating can certainly be an issue here. So let's see how that is going to unfold. Joom, of course, taking them round. Really alongside him on the front row. Of course, really, a lot of the, I'd say the front of the grid dominated by, you know, traditional qualifying specialists. Just behind that, though, you have got a few general race specialists, so it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic is going to unfold then. Of course, all these drivers on the grid have their own chances, have that competitive shot, that competitive drive as well to push themselves further forward. So we'll see how it's going to unfold. Tin Can will take them from the back of the grid. I'll hand over to you, Jack, for the pre-season race. The first time we'll see the D2 grid on the grid together. Take it away, Jack. Let's get the pre-season race. 28 laps of Kota underway.
Season number 7. It's mad to think about that, but we got to stop thinking about that, because we've got the 5 red lights about to go out, and out they go, and away the driver's going. It looks as if Rudy actually had the better start of the two, but got a little bit of wheel spin, so Joom does remain out in the lead of the race. He's looking like Calvin. He'll go around the outside, a few more drivers around at the back. Larkin, as well as Diamond, trying to get the moves done on Forza Brendan. Forza Brendan does now drop down into 6th position. In fact, him and Diamond, both side by side, coming towards the S's. Brendan does keep that position, though, from the Alfa Romeo, and it looks very clean so far through the start. Funky Chicken going across the S's at the back, towards the mid end of the pack, and him Time and Scream both going at it as well at the end of the S's. It looks like Funky Chicken might, I don't know if he may have gotten a little bit of damage because he went very wide coming out of it. As in fact, a little bit further down the field, Nathan and Zadama are both going side by side as well, trading places in the end as Zadama gets that move done on Nathan. And even a little bit further up the field, AJ Wuhan and Kriko both going at it side by side. A little bit of damage I've just seen come from the back end of the grid, so I don't know who that was, whether that was Nolan dropping down or Nathan dropping down. It might have been one of the McLarens that has just picked up damage, but at the moment it's looked very clean throughout the field as they go pretty wide towards the back end, in towards the end of this DRS straight. Zadama on the very outside, Funky Chicken and Nathan JB, and they all make it through. Zadama trying to go down the inside of Funky Chicken, as well as Nathan trying to go around the outside of Zadama into the water, coming towards the double left-hander. And Nathan, I think, has just gotten that move done on Zadama, and you can also see Pokey trying to follow through as well. A little bit of contact between the pair of us. Funky Chicken at the back end of the grid has now gone around, and Promoted Tin Can now up in the P19, but very unfortunate for Funky Chicken, now down towards the back end of the grid. Other than that, that's been a very clean start from everybody so far.
Very good driving all the way through for one of the most technical starts on the track. Then of course that S section can cause incident, but it didn't on this occasion. Doom leads Rudy, Calvin through the first lap as they all filter on to the second lap. Then Carwin Rob is battling away with Kariko, gets to the inside and through, recovering from a less than clean start from him. It must be said that Mr. BD and Tove battling further down the field. Then two medium shod runners going at it out there on the track, and Tin Can and Nolan further back in the field into the S section, and Tin Can had to get out of that one. Nolan has gone through, but it isn't Nolan, I wonder, that has that damage, because he does seem to be understeering quite a lot through the track. He does look to be struggling just a little bit. Further up the road, you can see them all fading away, heading in to the hairpin for the second time of 28 in the race. And of course, the main objective on this track is to break or try and stay with DRS just in front of you, so you will see how these guys are going to approach this. Carmentos with a run on Ferg to the inside into turn 12, very late braking for the Alpine round the outside, gets it stopped, turned in and ahead of the Ferrari, so he maintains the place. Diamond with a little bit of a mistake heading up the road there, and Ferg now trying to go from defence to attack with a send to the inside of the turn 15, doesn't get much space for the Alfa Romeo, who will hold it around. So Diamond holding on to P6, but not the best run he would have wanted through that section of the track. AJ Wuhan is looking at Gary, so they're all over the road then, jostling away through the track. It has been very clean for the most part then as they filter through, but the gaps looking to start beginning to appear. DRS enabled here, but it looks like at the very least all those soft runners critically have managed to stay with the front for them. It's Ferg mistake, then Carmentos slips through to 7th.
Yeah, Carmelo's just getting that move done at the final corner. Ferg, I think, had a little bit of an oversteer at that final corner, so Aiden just managed to just sweep straight through. Nolan now into the pits, obviously with that wing damage, so he's going to be putting on a new front wing, new fresh set of medium tyres, and then will be on his way once again. But yeah, Gary, very, very close to Ferg through these S section. I think Ferg must be struggling on these tyres already early on, and we're only on lap 3 as Tin Can picking up the first 3-second time penalty for Division 2, so things are going to get a bit interesting a little bit later on in the race when we see a lot more penalties start to get picked up as Carl and Rob a little bit further back in view, just going a little bit wide coming at the exit of the uphill section as now DRS being enabled. Ferg will have that DRS, Gary will have that DRS, AJ Wuhan all over the back of the Irishman. Now Gary using his DRS to try and maybe get the move done on Ferg. You can see Ferg trying to go a little bit defensive on the XL driver and just has to back off, does the Irishman, but he's still eyeing up that attack on the relentless driver. But again, he just has to back out of that one. He wants to try and play it right and try and make his moves properly. But even further up on the field, everyone in the top 11 are within this car, within this train, which is just absolutely insane. Doom still manages to hold a lead of the race so far. Rudy in second, Calvin in third, Larkin in fourth, Brendan dropping down one position, trading it with Larkin with fourth and fifth, Diamond making his way up in the sixth from the beginning, Carmentalist in seventh, Ferg in eighth, Gary in ninth, and AJ Wuhan in 10th as Diamond going quite wide coming out of that final corner. A little bit naughty from him, but yeah, it did look like it cost him a little bit of time anyway, so I suppose that doesn't matter too much, as I thought Rudy might have gone for that move on Doom in Orstown 1, but I believe the Dutchman just trying to play that right as Gary and Wuhan now both going side by side through turn number 1. Wuhan going down the inside, Gary's going to have now the inside for turn 2 and has to back out of that one. The Irishman getting swallowed up from the Ferrari driver, and Gary now down into 10th. There's a little bit of a Celtic battle that's about to go down, a Welshman versus an Irishman for that P10 position. This is going to be a bit of an interesting battle here, Dan.
and timing an early penalty. One thing to note, AJ Wuhan, brilliant start in this race, up 6 places. Remember, he started down in 15th spot. As further up the field, Larkin has had a go at Calvin, and now they run parallel out of turn 11. DRS flicking open the rear wing, also for the lead. Rudy with a run on Juma, and Juma is not going to fight it, so he lets it go. Rudy to the race lead, and still Calvin and Larkin into the braking zone on the inside as Larkin trying to assert himself on the track, and Calvin chooses to back off. Now Forza Brendan with a run to the outside to turn 13, trying to sweep around the long way around, get the inside line through turn 14 and 15. A bit of contact between them though, and in the end Brendan just had to get out of it. So Calvin down to 4th though, a bit of an oversteer, he holds on to it, but timing an early penalty. Carmentless, a mistake at the start of the lap, manages to claw himself back into that DRS, dragging Ferg with him. So you can see again all these top 11 still with each other, but the mistakes are creeping in early. These softs go off quickly and they can overheat, especially when you're running in a battle like this. So let's see how this is going to unfold. We saw Rudy get to the front. June sticking with him though at the moment. Definitely no decisive breaks yet in this race.
Yeah, no, certainly not. And yeah, I think that's a bit of, as I said, it's an interesting dynamic. Calvin versus Brendan for P4 position. As I said, both teammates, they've been teammates for 2 seasons now, from Division 4 where they both got promoted to Division 3, and now from Division 3 to where they've both been promoted in Division 2. So I can't imagine after this that they might end up being teammates after that. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting battle between these two throughout this season. So Calvin just managing to hold on to that up ahead of the Irishman in 5th. Like you said, time picking up an early time penalty, that's definitely going to cost him a lot of positions. I mean, like I said, the top 11 all still within this DRS range of each other. They're all in fact separated by about 0.5 of a second from one another, as Larkin looking the closest one, potentially getting a move done on June for this P2 position. You can see Larkin, I think, has a little bit better straight line speed in comparison to Spaniard, although saying that, June maybe trying to up and down and move down the inside in towards Rudy, coming at the end of the DRS straight. No, he has to back out of that one. Larkin, I think, giving a little bit of a nudge at the end of that DRS straight as Calvin and Brendan once again going at it. The two ex-teammates now coming through and not able to get the move done as the Irishman maybe down the inside though as he comes through this corner, as Larkin tries to go down dive for the inside as he has to back out of that one. Rudy goes a bit wide coming out of it as well. Brendan now trying to go around the outside of Calvin through the triple wides. Calvin's going to hold the inside. Is Brendan going to be able to get this move done? No, he has to back out of that one. What a battle this is going on through these top 5, and all of this is just allowing Carmentis. I mean, Carmentis is about 0.8 of a second from the last lap. He's now caught up. It is all within this battle. These guys are going at it from tooth and nail, as Rudy is now might just try and start sailing off into the lead of this race.
Yeah, as you can see them all jostling. I saw Brendan having that look to the inside, Diamond fainting. They're all fainting, just trying to put each other off. Further down the field, Zoudema and Nathan JB in the medium train, then fading out of turn 1 and still side by side. They're going to go into the S section then, almost level, and Nathan JB has to get out of it, surely. He nudges Zoudema slightly, trying to get underneath him. The Red Bull will park it through the middle of that section, through turn 5, and in the end will just seize the higher ground and the place. He gets the move done then, and moving through. Of course, that medium train don't want to be battling too much. They want to make the pace so that while the soft guys are battling, they can stay in range for that soft scent they're going to have at the end of the race. So let's see. Larkin, a good straight line speed up behind Jim, is looking at the rear wing of the AlphaTauri, who closes up himself to the Aston Martin. No moves being thrown there. There's a lot of patient driving. As I say that, Jim out wide. Rudy is a bit of a concertina, then Larkin to P2, and Rudy now wide up in front to Larkin, trying to snatch the race lead here. I think Rudy will hold on to it, but I'm not sure what happened there, because it seemed as though both Jim and Rudy ran wide. I'm not sure. I wasn't on board with Larkin. Was there contact between them? Jim is slipping back there. Is there damage potentially for the AlphaTauri? I'm searching for it. He's off the road, and yeah, Jim completely out of position here. I'm watching here now as he emerges through turn 19, scrubbing off the surface of the road. He does stay out, then he forces now he dives to the pit lane late. He must have picked up damage then, so he must have went into the back of Rudy. Was it a misjudgment on Jim or a misjudgment on Larkin? I didn't get a great view of that, Jack.
Well, just really quickly before that, Larkin getting past Rudy in the turn 1, so Larkin now into the lead of this race, and the Alfa Romeo is just going to try and sail off into the distance. Rudy, though, had very good pace so far in this race, but yeah, I mean, what happened was June just broke a little bit later than normal, went straight into the back of Rudy, forced Rudy off wide, and that meant Larkin could just go straight through him. So yeah, it was more June just misjudging that braking point in the end, and yeah, he's now of course down into 18th position. He slapped on a fresh set of the soft tyres once again. He could go go on the mediums and could potentially go to the end of the race. But now the Spaniard, he's going to have to do yet another pit stop. So that's completely ruined his race and any chance of him being able to take the win for tonight. Of course, with there not being any safety car, no one can sort of just try and gamble on one coming out. So, yeah, unfortunately for Doom, he's now going to be basically out of the contention of the winner of this race. Further up the field, Rudy once again switching positions with Larkin to take back the lead of the race. Calvin, I thought, was eyeing up a move as Car Mentalist gets the move done on Diamond for that P5 position, or P4 position, sorry. And now Car Mentalist up into 4th position, one space off of getting himself onto that podium once again. But at the moment, it is Rudy, Larkin and Calvin on the podium so far. Of course, lap 7 and lap number 28. We saw a few guys make their way into the pits early on, which those guys being Brendan, Gary, Doom and Ferg. Obviously, Brendan and Gary are the ones that are really fighting for this front battle. Are we going to see any more people coming into the pits? Calvin is one of them. Car Mentalist is following him in. So the two Relentless drivers making their way into the pits. Anybody else following suit? Carwin Rob is coming in. So they're the only 3 so far making their way into the pits for this lap. The other rest of the top 4 still yet to make their pit stops, and I assume we're going to see them make their way in at the end of this lap. But if they continue to battle the way that they're doing at the moment, the guys that have just pit on the set of the medium tyres, they're going to be absolutely left for dust.
Yes, certainly. Let's see how this is going to unfold then, because Calvin has come out and he is some way behind Forza Brendan. Look at that undercut. Forza Brendan gets a good job. He picked up a penalty on the last lap, but you can see how strong that undercut has proved to be, and because, of course, those soft tyres degrading very, very fast. So let's see what these top 4 are going to do about it, because they can be hung out to dry here. Of course, Rudy leads Larkin. They were leading before, as Carmen Robb has gone off, heading through that S section. He had a very positive race up to that point, but unfortunately heading out of turn 4 must have just snapped the car. Up in front, Larkin attacking Rudy, outside, and Rudy late on the brakes, throws the anchors down and tries to get himself back in front, then squeezes Larkin to the outer regions of the track. Larkin fading back inside, will regain the place heading into turn 13. Larkin leads, but these guys battling is not going to do them any favours, because as we saw, that undercut for Brendan was so powerful. He's got clearly in front of Calvin with a fast outlap trying to get up to him. So now, as Larkin and Rudy will surely dive to the pit lane here, where are they going to emerge in relation to these drivers now on fresh mediums making that ground? Larkin comes in, but Rudy staying out. He may be on the strategy that's going to put him on the best tyres later on, but in terms of the short-term track position, is staying out the right move for the Aston Martin?
I don't think it is, to be honest with you. Doing the undercut around here, especially by at least maybe 1 or 2 laps, gets you at least a second. So I think Rudy's definitely made the wrong call for that one. Same with Diamond. Both of those guys were within the top 5, and now I think that's pretty much cost them the rest of that. I mean, as you can see, Larkin, where he's come out now, he's come out behind Car Mentalist as well. In fact, side by side with Car Mentalist, shall I say, and Car Mentalist does leave him that room on the inside, but had to back out of that one, did the Alfa Romeo driver. So yeah, Larkin now behind Car Mentalist. That's surely got to show Rudy that was not the best strategy, and that Rudy, he might end up even dropping behind Gary, because Gary's now managed to edge his way into the DRS of Larkin. So Gary technically is in a net 5th position, with everyone else of the still yet to make their pit stop up in front, but Calvin and Brendan is the one in the net race lead at the moment.
Yeah, but he has had that gap pretty quickly cut into by Ariel Calvin. Of course, those two have a lot of history. They're catching Tin Can, who is at the rear of the medium train just off ahead on the road. A lot of the medium runners are only slightly in front. Calvin with huge overspeed on Brendan, closing in to the inside, trying to break later. They make a bit of a contact on the entry. Brendan moves across and gives it the squeezing treatment on the apex, and again covering that line to turn 13. Calvin looking for the exit and switching left and right, trying to find that gap, but the gap does not present itself, and Brendan holds on to the lead. But Calvin now, those tyres looking just a little bit healthier at this stage. Rudy and Timon, both of those guys stayed out. Now on lap 9 they dive to the pit lane, so where will they emerge in relation to the rest of the field? Now it's just the medium runners that are exposed at the front of the race, and we're going to see now the new medium runners, the medium starters just in front. Now we're going to see the net race leaders try and work their way through. As we look now for Rudy heading out of that pit lane. Diamond a few seconds further back than the Aston Martin, powering through. He may well be behind Gary. He is some way behind Gary. You can see as the soft tyres get exponentially worse and the mediums get up to temperature, it just falls away from someone like Rudy. This is a guy that was fighting for the lead before the pit stops, and having stayed out just a couple laps longer, now Jack some way off the back and having to work hard to get into the DRS of Gary, who was several seconds back before they came in.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And yeah, I think that was definitely the wrong call from Rudy, and same from Larkin. Obviously they all probably could have hit on that same lap, but they obviously may not have thought that their tyres would go to the end. So Larkin now does stay behind Carmentis. It's a little bit further up though. Brendan is within DRS of Tinkan. This was the battle for Division 3 for last season. Tinkan's going to try and go defensive down the inside. I don't know if he's actually letting Brendan through. If not, he definitely isn't. He's staying down the inside of his other championship rival from last season. Tinkan has to give that position up though. Brendan now up into 8th position, jumping up ahead of Tinkan, and that's now separated a car between himself and Calvin. So Tinkan now really is going to play a factor into how the rest of this race is going to go. Brendan of course has that 2-second time penalty. Tinkan of course also has a penalty and picked up another one in the process of trying to defend from Brendan, but at the same time Tinkan is on 9-lap old medium tyres. Calvin of course on brand new tyres. He needs to try and do some, if he does any defending, this could allow Brendan to just shoot off into the distance and potentially get himself this race win despite having that penalty. Of course, Calvin at the moment is in the net race lead because of Brendan having that penalty. Are we going to see Calvin maybe try and send it up the inside of Tinkan into turn 1? No, we do not. They're just going to try and maybe go for a better run, but Tinkan is the one that's staying up in front of him. And as I said, Calvin's now going to be dropping out of DRS from Brendan, so Brendan needs to really just shoot off as Calvin now picks up a 3-second time penalty. That's now going to promote a Mentalist to be in the net race lead. If see if they can try and make their way through Tinkan quickly, as Tinkan already losing out DRS to Brendan. So now he's really going to be a sitting duck for all of those guys behind. It just depends on how many are going to end up trying to pass him down this DRS straight. We'll keep an eye out on this battle and see who's going to be the one that comes on through. So let's have a look. As Calvin a little bit of atmosphere. Mentalist might now try and have a jump on that opportunity to go for that move. You can see Calvin using that ERS to try and get past Tinkan as well. So he gets 1, that's 2. Are any more going to get past? Larkin going to try and follow suit? He certainly is. Tinkan loses out 3 positions in the space of a straight. Calvin manages to stay up ahead. There's yellow flags a little bit further on. Who is that that's got the yellow flags? I think that's Zarma.
Yeah, Zarma, very rare to see him around. He was fighting very hard with the likes of Tope Nathan, so we'll see maybe has that just thrown him off. Further back to the field, there's a huge lunge by Rudy, who gets to on Tinkan, who was of course shuffled back and all of that. As Brendan moves past Mr. T, who's also stricken, so maybe those two, because there was a lot of debris. I get the feeling Mr. BT and Zarma may well have come together, and that's why you're seeing damage and going around from the pair of them. Nathan JB is going to the pit lane as well, very early for that medium strategy, so I think there may well have been an altercation between all of those guys, and that of course has set them back big time in the context of the race. 3 drivers to the pit lane. Zarma retires. Was that on the pit entry then, or is that where has he just gone off on the entry to the pit? Because well, Zarma, to be honest, is the last driver I'd expect to retire based on a rage quit.
Yeah, I think that was literally at the that was in the pit lane. So yeah, Zarma, the second DNF of the race, which is interesting to think. I think he must have had a collision with Nathan, because they were fighting pretty hard between the pair of them, and now. Well, Nathan coming into the pits and Zarma coming into the pits to retire. I think that must have been a collision between the pair of them. So, yeah, Nathan's gone on a fresh set of hards. Mr. BT also going on a fresh set of the hards as well. So, I don't know if that was a tussle between all of those guys. I wish we did catch it, but yeah, that's a bit interesting. A little bit further up though, down the inside of Emily Topian gets the move done again, putting another car between himself and Calvin for that, as well as Gary getting overtaken by Rudy down the end of the DRS straight as well. This is yellows in sector 1, and still of course from the stricken Zarma, but Gary picking himself up a 3-second time penalty. Thought he was trying to go for that move down the double right on Rudy, but just had to back out of that one, as Diamond and Tinkan both having a bit of a argy-bargy moment, as Diamond sort of squeezing out Tinkan at the exit of the double left. So again, a little bit annoying from Diamond, but I know he's on a fresher set of tyres. He wants to try and get through. Just got to try and do a little bit cleaner than that. But even a little bit further up ahead, Topi's still in front of Calvin. And the interesting thing is Topi gets the DRS as well. So he's going to be able to at least defend from Calvin coming up in towards turn 1. Just I think from after the S's, I think he might be in a little bit of trouble through that DRS. But interesting thing to note as well, Brendan now within DRS of his teammate for that P3 position as well. Brendan's still in the net race lead. Of course, Carmentalist will be because of the penalties, but he's starting to slowly slip away. It's about 2.1 seconds separating Carmentalist and Brendan, so that he needs to try and get a bit of a move on.
Yes, certainly. Tope not doing these two any favours, and you'd expect that Funky Chicken is going to try and do his teammate every favour in the world and try and get that gap back up as Carmentalist bogged down at the moment. Tope and Calvin in front, and then Nolan another penalty. Now, watch now as Tope does not have the DRS this time around. You'd expect Calvin, you'd expect Carmentalist, both of them to cruise through to P5 and P6 on the road. So Calvin into P5, Carmentalist slots in behind into P6. Tope has to get over it. Larkin now trailing those two. He's still looking at Carmentalist, of course, a chance of getting through it on track. Carmentalist is winning. Tope trying to fight back. In the end, does not go for the move, and Larkin a huge lunge in a turn 15. Can he get it stopped in turn 10? Yes, he can with no contact. Now he's got a sweep all the way round the outside, gets the move done through turn 17. Larkin, bravery, and that's exactly what he needed to do to get the move done and stay with Carmentalist, the only man in front of him in terms of net possession that doesn't have that penalty. Larkin knew he had to go for it, set it up beautifully with a lunge at a turn 15, and that's the racecraft you'd come to expect from a former champion of Division 2.
Certainly do. Now this is where things get a little bit more interesting now. I think this is where the team games are going to start to play into effect, because Calvin 1.1 seconds now behind Forza Brendan, Carmentalist all over the back of him, so he's obviously going to get the DRS on him. The Belgian, I don't think is going to have a leg to stand on when the DRS comes about, unless he just gets within DRS of Brendan. You can see it's teetering on the edge of it, and I think Calvin had an absolute lovely end to the S section and gets himself in that DRS, so he will be able to fend off from Carmentalist in the end. Tope getting passed by Rudy coming in towards the hairpin as well, so Rudy will at least get that DRS and stay up ahead of Tope. But yeah, DRS now wide open, and you can see Brendan, he's going to get that move done on his teammate, and now it's up to Funky Chicken to see if he can play the team game and hold up the rest of the guys behind him, as Gary also getting that move done on Tope. In fact, still both side by side as yet. There you go, the Irishman gets the move done on the Hash Driver in the end. So yeah, Tope just has to back out of that one. Still down in P10, still yet to make a pit stop, same with Tin Can, and of course Creeko and Scream and Funky Chicken all still yet to make any sort of pit stops as well, as Forza Brendan now only 2.5 seconds behind the two MLE teammates, and seeing if he's going to be able to get any sort of move done on these guys. It's a bit of a tall order, because it's one thing catching them, it's another thing overtaking, so whether he'll be able to do it or not is going to be a different story. Funky Chicken will still keep the DRS from his teammate, so at least to be able to hold off of Calvin moving towards turn 1. It's just dependent if he's going to be able to do it well at the end of the S section and that DRS, as well as Tope comes into the pits on lap 14. It's quite early for a fresh set of soft tyres. Usually it's about lap 17 or 18 for a fresh set of softs.
Yeah, I'm very doubtful those tyres will reach the end of the race, but I guess we'll see how that strategy is going to work out. AJ Wuhan picking up a time penalty. We are halfway through the pre-season race, and even at this halfway mark, the top 11 covered by 6.5 seconds. It's such a competitive fight out there on the track, and Brendan now being held up by Scream and Creeko. Those two MLE drivers, of course, a very familiar teammate pairing now in Division 2, and Brendan now up behind them. Funky Chicken under threat from Calvin, and Calvin can make a very important move here if he can get close enough to the Mercedes to dive inside into turn 11. Can he get it stopped in turn 10? Yes, he can, and he'll see it through. Chicken does back out of it. That's a great move from Calvin, because now he is staring right at the rear of Forza Brendan. Both one penalty for both of those guys. It's Carmentalist now that has to be clinical and has to try and make the move. MLE Scream, MLE Creeko holding down the front of the race. Brendan getting closer and closer, but Creeko has that DRS from his teammate. Scream the race leader now with a penalty to his name as they stay out another lap then, as you'd maybe expect from this strategy. Forza Brendan now is going to find it maybe a bit more difficult unless he can pull out all the stops here, but he's not going to go for the move at this stage. Carmentalist will cruise through on the inside of Funky Chicken, will make the move into P5, and Larkin now trying to follow through behind Carmentalist with the traction through the exit, and again Funky Chicken backs out of it. Larkin so clinical, and now up behind Carmentalist, who cannot shake him off. Carmentalist though has managed to stay with Calvin through all that, and now Forza Brendan is being held up. So what you're seeing now, as Rudy trying to come with him as well, all of the front runners stacking up as the medium runners hold them off, and now Forza Brendan has to make the move. If he doesn't get it done soon, now Calvin is going to look to try and follow through and take advantage of the Mercedes man being held up.
Yeah, certainly will. But at this moment now, the battle for the lead of this race is between Carmentalist and Larkin. Of course, both yet to pick themselves up a 3-second time penalty. As Rudy trying to go down the inside of Funky Chicken. Rudy, though, hasn't really got the ERS to play with. So this could play into Funky Chicken's hands as Brendan does get the move done on Creco at the end of the DRS straight. Going back on board with Rudy and Funky Chicken. Rudy does get the move done in the end on the Relentless Driver. So Rudy now up into 7th position. As, Forza Brendan, that is a crucial move. He got that move done on Emily Creco and needed to get that done ASAP. So now Creco's just going to be, well, he's going to be holding the rest of these guys back. You can see how much Scream pulled away just at the exit of those double lefts. And yeah, I think Carmentalist and Larkin, they need to try and follow Calvin through with Creco. Otherwise, they're going to be held up. Brendan's just going to be able to sail straight off into the distance as Scream is in. So Scream coming in, and we're going to probably see Creco coming on the next lap. Interesting thing though, Creco still has DRS into the back of Brendan as Toby picks himself up a 3-second time penalty. Yeah, Creco has still got that DRS. Calvin maybe going to try and dive it down the inside. He sticks his nose in there. Calvin coming out of turn 1. He's around the outside and turn 2 and gets the move on the Belgian. Oh, a little bit of oversteer from him though. Almost 3 wide going towards the S's as Creco holds that position in the end. Brendan is now being allowed to just shoot straight off. You can see it. 1.7 seconds up ahead of Carmentalist already.
Wow, that was a crucial and bizarre mistake from Ariel Calvin just after getting the move done, and now Creco is going to be back in front. Now he is surely going to get swamped on this straight. Rudy's now in this fight now with Carmentalist and Larkin, but Brendan has got an amazing break. So let's see now as they get themselves down the back straight towards the hairpin now. Creco, as I said, is going to get swamped. Calvin through. Carmentalist will follow him through then, and Larkin diving down the inside, runs into Carmentalist, and the Ferrari nearly round saves it, collects it. Larkin with contact. Rudy now on the back of Larkin. Larkin, I have to say, an error of judgment at Carmentalist, the innocent bystander, and that knocked out to 6th. Calvin has gone through, and this has played perfectly into Ariel Forza Brendan's hands, who flies away up the roof as the Mercedes man. So now Brendan with a commanding advantage out in front then regarding, unless he gets another penalty, of course, Creco will dive out of the way. So Larkin now continues just barely out of that penalty range, so he's going to have to dig and try and find a bit more pace, try and show the quality that led him to that championship back in Season 5. So Larkin now with that chance of beating Brendan, but ultimately did make that mistake further down the road, you have to say, running into Carmentalist, and Carmentalist, who was looking the favourite for the win for so long, with 11 laps to go now, severely disadvantaged down in P5, and you sense how a race win is really a mountain to climb now for the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, I think this is where things are going to get a bit interesting as well. 3.3 seconds separates both, separates from Brendan from Larkin, so Larkin needs to get a bit of a move on. Only problem now though, Rudy is all over the back of him. I say all over the back of him, he's about 7.5 tenths behind him, so he needs to get a move on, as I think there's been a bit of a spinner down the field. I think that's Jim at the exit of turn 1, as he's just letting everyone go through the S section. So Jim must have made some big mistake, as he's now dropped down the field down into 17th position. So, so he must have, he must have dropped it at the exit of turn 1, because I saw those yellow flags there very briefly. But very unfortunate for the Spaniard, putting it on pole, and now it's gone from hero to zero at the end of this. So very unfortunate for him. Hopefully he doesn't do that throughout the season, because I'd like to see a very good battle for this championship. But speaking of that, Larkin now 2.9 seconds. He's literally teetering on the edge of that 3-second gap between himself and Forza Brendan. As long as Larkin doesn't pick himself up a 3-second time penalty, I think Larkin might end up taking the win on this one, because he's now trying to build himself back into that DRS of Ariel Calvin. If he does that, then really he's just got to gain himself back up, and then that should be the win for Larkin. But it's whether he will be able to, as Brendan's just looking, he's just keeping it nice and tidy, nice and clean throughout the entirety of the lap. Larkin, though, just looks a lot better coming through that first part of the first sector. I think here, though, is where Brendan will gain a bit more of an advantage.
Yeah, but it's an everlasting battle. Calvin is burning a lot of battery. He does make a small mistake, though, and that will help Larkin. So Larkin then will try and grab that DRS, which will pull him up towards Calvin, and fairly comfortably within that range of Forza Brendan, you may think. So now as they come up to the detection point, I think Larkin has managed to grab that DRS. Yes, he has. You can see that rear wing is going to open up for Larkin. So this not only opens up the rear wing, but it opens doors for him in the race. As that gap to Brendan comes down to under 2.5 seconds by the time they hit the brake pedal for the 19th time at the end of that 1 kilometre long straight. So Brendan now will have to try and work, and Calvin will be hoping that Brendan picks up a penalty, and of course Larkin, Rudy and Commentalist, who are all still waiting in the wings. Rudy has quietly worked himself into a brilliant position in this race, and is now teetering at the edge of that penalty range, or Forza Brendan himself. So he's kept himself right in the mix as well. But Calvin has also slipped back. He is not able to quite match the pace of Forza Brendan. As such, Larkin may well have to try and get it done on track, because now he's slipped back to just teetering at the edge of that penalty range. So it's going to be that everlasting battle, and I think that's going to be the story of these last 9 laps. Forza Brendan trying to take his dream victory in this opening race, and Larkin, Rudy and Commentalist with no penalties, trying to avoid getting the penalties themselves, and trying as well to try and stay within that penalty range of Brendan. But one thing to know, as I said, Calvin looks to be struggling a little bit more and is slipping back. So I think if these guys want to win the race, they're going to have to go through Calvin first and try and make the pace for the road, because at the moment Forza Brendan cruising away from Ariel Calvin in P1 and 2.
And this is probably the only place that you will see him be able to do this. Let's have a look then on board with Larkin, and let's see if he gets a better exit of himself and the Relentless Driver. He looks as if he has as well. The RS now enabled for Larkin. He's going to be closing up to the back of Calvin. He'll see that red light on the back of Calvin's car. You can see him closing up to the back of him. Straight down the inside he goes and gets that move done. He's really going to follow suit. Yes, he will. He's really going to try and go down the inside though. Calvin tries to hold it around the outside of the Dutchman, but goes quite deep. The Dutch versus the Belgians, and it looks as if the Dutch are the ones that come out on top. Really gets that move done on Calvin in the end. Up into P3, Calvin now down into 4. Commentalist unfortunately not able to follow suit, and Larkin now up into second, 2.5 seconds now behind Forza Brendan. Two lap fresher tyres as well for the XL drivers, so it is a battle with this Relentless versus XL, and I feel like we're going to be seeing this a lot throughout this season. Is Larkin going to be able to keep within those 3 seconds of Forza Brendan and be able to keep it penalty free? Let's have a quick let's keep an eye on it as Diamond once again another 3-second time penalty. I think that's 12 seconds now for TDB of all of these penalties. Let's have a quick look. So it's 9 seconds for TDB in the end. Darry has 6 and Ferg has 3, so very interesting dynamic on that, as very, very close between Calvin and Commentalist. I thought Commentalist was going to try and go for that move on Calvin in towards turn 1, but had to back out of that one, and I think things are about to start shaking up here, Dan. I think really might end up going for this move on Larkin, you know?
Yeah, and these guys, though, they may want to battle, because, of course, at the moment, Larkin is barely within that range. But Rudy, of course, is going to be wary of fighting Larkin too hard, although both drop out of that range. So there is this very, very fine balance that these guys are all striking in the final laps of this race. 2.7 seconds is the gap, and Brendan has a lot more battery than either of these guys in P2 and 3, and Larkin is burning a lot of that battery, every last reserve he has. Commentalist now up behind Calvin, looks to the inside and dives it late on the brakes as the Ferrari commits to the inside apex and slips through. Clean move from Commentalist, and he sticks with Larkin, sticks with Rudy as well, trying to grab that place on the podium, maybe even the win. He's not out of the picture just yet at this stage. Brendan still pushing to try and get away. At this stage it is just flat out going at it, but Larkin has had a good lap, and that gap has just come down that little bit more once more. I saw a little bit of a mistake as Commentalist now a penalty, which is going to be massively detrimental to his chances now. He was looking the favourite for the win, and now those chances just slip away. But at the front, I've seen a few wobbles from Forza Brendan. He has got much older tyres than Larkin or Rudy. So Larkin and Rudy now, as long as they can avoid penalties, their tyres will eventually come to them as they start to push the limits on these sets. Rudy, with the youngest tyres in this group, though, looks really strong. He looks very quick behind Larkin, but I think at the moment he's trying to bide his time and save that battery and assume that Larkin can stay in that penalty range and try and capitalise right at the end. So maybe Rudy is building up his master plan, trying to work it through and maybe find a way to try and grab this race winner to death. He sits up behind Larkin, barely within range of Brendan. But it's such a teetering edge. But right now, you have to say that Rudy 1973's worked himself into a great position. Whether he can capitalise on it is yet to be seen.
I'll tell you what, we've kind of missed out on this one as well. As I'll quickly stick on board with Rudy as he's trying to maybe go down the inside of Larkin in towards the hairpin. He's going to try and go for the move. The Dutchman going to get that move done on Larkin in the end. So Larkin now back down into third, and Rudy is now in our net race lead, but 2.8 seconds. In fact, has now dropped down to 3 years. I think Larkin trying to go for that move on Rudy once again. Rudy, I think, not having the very good exit out of the end of all of that, but Rudy now manages to get that move done and get himself back up into that. Within the penalty range of Forza Brendan. So Larkin now down into third position, aka a net second position. An interesting thing to note as well, Funky Chicken in ninth position, yet to pick himself up a penalty. In front as well, on a fresh set of the softs. Gets the move done on. He could get the move done on Ferg, and then really he's got about 5 laps to try and catch up to the end of this grid. So he does. He's on an outside shot of picking this up. I'd say 4th place at the maximum at the moment.
Yeah, we'll see as he does dive that move on Ferg, will cleanly go through into 8th position. Now he's got to try and avoid those penalties. Calvin, another penalty, and again a race that looked so promising for so long. Now slipping away from the Alpine driver, then he's showed great pace tonight. But it looks as though a race winner or podium looks a bit of a stretch too far at the moment. One thing to note, Rudy is pushing like nothing else matters at the moment. Then he's burned all that excess battery I said that he had, and he's trying to get away from Larkin. Larkin just barely hanging on. He's having to burn the remainder of his battery reserves. Brendan does have a bet in hand, but the gap is back down again to 2.3 seconds as we look to the final stages of the race. So Brendan still is going to have to try and find a bit more. Rudy and Larkin and Funky Chicken, the only clean drivers left in this race. In terms of the penalties, we know how difficult it can be to go a full race without picking up those crucial 3 warnings, and they've got to try and avoid that for just the last few laps. Diamond, I saw having a look at Gary, and Gary closes the door, was not allowing a move like that in the inside of turn 16. Diamond and Gary, I've seen a lot of very unrealistic, dare I say it, moves between these guys going at it. Very aggressive battle between Gary and Diamond, and it has just dropped them back a bit and nearly out of DRS reach from the guys in front. But as I mentioned, Rudy, with a huge push lap, Larkin has managed to resist it and stay with it, and that's had the effect of both of them closing in on Forza Brendan. That gap now down to about 2.2 seconds. Brendan with the battery advantage though, but he's going to need every bit of that as Rudy, huge laps then, cutting that gap down.
Yeah, 2.1 seconds is now the gap. I think Rudy, he really is just pushing that to the limit as much as possible, and it's working out for him. I mean, he's still only got about 15% left of his battery, and same with Larkin, but they're both literally teetering on the edge. Oh, I say on the edge. Larkin's teetering on the edge, but Rudy is almost comfortably in that 3-second range of Forza Brendan. He just needs to make sure that he keeps it nice and clean, like he is doing at the moment, and then he'll be able to at least get the win on the win through the penalties as well. As Larkin getting a DRS now on Rudy. He's in fact himself just saving a bit more of his battery. In fact, turns off his DRS just to make sure that he doesn't go almost into the back of Rudy. But yeah, Larkin has now, he's just trying to build up that ERS a bit more so he can maybe try and go for an attack on Rudy towards the end of the race and hope that he's still within those 3 seconds of Forza Brendan, because if he does, then he will literally get the win of this race just from that final lap. If this is what is going to happen, if he can manage to stay within it. Brendan needs to try and get a bit more of a move on. He is building up his ERS a bit more so he can try and go for an all-out trying to get away. However, I think the Irishman might be a little bit under threat from that one, as a little bit further down the field, Tinkan and AJ Wuhan both going at it for that P12 position. Of course, Tinkan, I think, got quite a few more penalties than what AJ Wuhan has, but yeah, good battle between the pair of them nonetheless, and Tinkan even still trying to go for that move through the triple rights, but unfortunately has to back out of that one. Of course, Division 3 title contender from last season, ended up finishing second in the end, trying to make his way through the field now and try and get that move done on AJ Brown. It's a penalty for Larkin. 30-second time penalty. That's now cost him the chance of being able to take the win. Rudy is now really the only one that can take the win of this race now. If the Dutchman keeps it clean, this is his opportunity to have his win, and it'll be his proper first win in Division 2. Of course, not being able to pick up that one from last season at Silverstone after that contact he had with Nico, it ended up going to Gary in the end. Rudy now really looking to pick up his first win in Division 2. If he's able to do it, as Larkin not going to go down the inside of Rudy, in towards the hairpin. I think Larkin's thinking if he doesn't get the win, he's going to trying to at least help Brendan to get the win, knowing Larkin. So Larkin's going to try. He's got the move done on Rudy in the end. Rudy still within those 3 seconds. So let's have a look and see if he's going to be able to stick within those 3 seconds. Of course, 3 more laps left to go after this, or once we cross the line. There's still what to play for, Dan.
Yeah, and of course, you have to mention as well, Brendan is only 1 warning away from a second penalty, and Rudy is only 1 warning away from a first penalty. So this is far from over, even for Larkin. So let's see how this is going to unfold then. Larkin pushing very, very hard, and the gap to Brendan is cut down just a little bit. Rudy, I think, is quite happy to let him stay in front, of course, unless Larkin starts backing up. They both have a tyre advantage on Brendan, and that was going to be very key in these last few laps. Brendan tyres are going to start to scream. He's going to be doing over 20 laps on those tyres by the end of the Grand Prix out there on the track. I'm now looking back to Funky Chicken now. 3.9 seconds is the gap to Gary. Gary with 9 seconds of penalties, Simon 9 seconds, Calvin 6 seconds. All those guys at the moment looking as though they're going to be jumped by Funky Chicken. The Mercedes man is pushing when all he has to try and get in range of as many drivers as he can. If he has a great run, he might even be able to get Commensalist. We will see. Commensalist still sat behind Rudy now, up behind Larkin. Is he going to go for the move? Let's see. He's burning that battery. The DRS is open. He's going to cruise through on the inside, and these overtakes that these guys are pulling on each other as Larkin has to go off the track to not run into the back of the Aston Martin, who runs very wide. And as I was going to say, as Diamond moves past Calvin, the overtakes these guys have been doing have been very efficient then. Very streamlined, just down the straight. It's exactly how you want to work when you're trying to go for the fastest race time, rather than necessarily the best position at that current moment. Rudy getting in front of Larkin on this lap, the gap 2.2 seconds. Of course now Brendan, he's going to have 2 laps to try and get this gap out with 3 lap older tyres. His advantage is of course that battery. Rudy of course has to stay within that range without getting 1 more warning. He cannot afford to get 1 more, so there's still a lot of pressure on the Aston Martin man. The gap though 2 seconds. That tyre advantage is coming into more and more play. I think Brendan is starting to really struggle now. Rudy within that range, he just needs 2 solid laps to the end. Brendan needs 2 flying laps to the end, and Larkin needs to hope that these guys, well, he needs to hope for a miracle at this stage in the race with that penalty. So right now it's looking like it's between these 2, but at the moment Rudy is flying. The gap under 2 seconds now. A great run of laps from Rudy, an inspired run now. 1.8 seconds, but he runs wide, and I think his heart must have been in his mouth there, but he gets away with it. Gap 1.9. Rudy just needs to keep it clean. He's got the win in hand, but you can imagine the pressure mounting. Now looking for that win. Just has to bring it home in the pre-season races his.
Yeah, he certainly does. Gary very much struggling in the back of the grid as well, or back of this trade as well. Now of DRS from the rest of them. He's still got it, but yeah, definitely struggling against the Irishman. Excuse me. Larkin, 0.3 of a second now behind Rudy, and still cannot find a way past the Dutchman. Rudy, I think, is going to get this win in the end. If, as I said, as long as he keeps it clean on this final lap, 1 warning is what's going to change the absolute dynamic of the finish of this race, shall I say. If Rudy does manage to keep it clean, then I think Rudy has managed to take this win in the end. You can start to see, though, Ford of Brendan's tyres are really going off, because Rudy has caught up by about 0.3 of a second this lap alone. So Brendan's tyres really are going off. He hasn't got a puncture or anything like that. We're now on to the final lap of the race, and this is where Brendan's now going to start to burn this up a bit more. Brendan, he's going to try and use as much battery as he possibly can. He's still got 20% left in the tank in comparison to Rudy and Larkin, where they've only got about 10%. Commensalist, interestingly enough, still has about 33% in the tank. So, yeah, Carmentalis might still have a bit of an outside shot of at least getting the move on Larkin and trying to at least get that third position. But it's whether he will be able to or not. Rudy doesn't get a penalty through the S's. Still got a few more corners left where it's very easy to pick up a penalty. So we'll keep on board with the Dutchman and see if he does. No, still nothing at the moment as Diamond. Yet another 3-second time penalty. Funky Chicken really is in a very good spot to overtake about 3 of these drivers. Unfortunately, not going to get close enough to Carmentalis unless Carmentalis picks up another penalty on the final lap. Yeah, at the moment, it's looking like the podium is going to be Brendan, Rudy, and Larkin, unless Carmentalis has something to say about it. He's using all of his ERS to try and close up. He is not going to be able to get close enough to get any move done. Rudy, in fact, saying that though, Larkin had to back off ever so slightly because he was almost all over the back of Rudy. Are we going to see the Ferrari try and go for the move in towards the double lefts? Let's keep an eye out on this one. He's going to attempt it. You can see he really wants to try and get that move done, but he has to back out of that one. We're going to go on board with our race leader because Forza Brendan, he has played this so well. Very unfortunate that he picked himself up that 3-second time penalty. The Division 3 champion from last season has played this almost to perfection. If he didn't have that 3-second penalty, that would have been perfect for him. He comes across the line to finish in second. Rudy will take his first actual win in Division 2. Larkin does finish out the podium. Carmentalis in 4th, with Calvin in 5th. Funky Chicken jumps up into 6th in the end, just missing out to Calvin by 2 seconds. Diamond in 7th, Gary in 8th, Scream in 9th, Creco in 10th, Berg in 11th, and AJ Ruhan in 12th. If there was, of course, points on the line, AJ Ruhan would have picked up the final points position. Tinkan ends up finishing in 13th, 14th, 15th in the end, actually, because of Nathan and Mr. BT having less penalties than, of course, Tinkan. Topi finishes in 16th in the end. June and Nolan, I think, had a little bit of a coming together between the pair of them as, yeah, it looks as if they're just sort of driving through each other at the moment. So, yeah, that is all she wrote for that race. And what a pre-season race to start off, Dan.
Sorry, Nolan has just driven completely off the track. He's got in a complete disregard for anything. It's him and June. June go up to the line, then June about 0.2 of a second ahead in what looked like a bit of a nonsense battle on the final lap of the race. So, that is going to be it for pre-season. And, well, that is our first real taster of where everyone stands. Of course, we know that some drivers struggling in terms of the penalties. We knew that would be the case around the USA circuit, but you have to say Rudy coming out on top, and well, you can't say anything about it. Of course, he worked his way through, picked his spots nicely, made no mistakes, made all the right moves, and in the end came right through to snatch that race win from Brendan. Really impressive performance, I have to say, from a lot of the D3 promotees. That is going to be certainly an eye-opener for this race, but it is in the end an old D2 favourite, Rudy, who will keep this win. Of course, it won't count because it isn't an official race in the calendar, but it's certainly, I think, for the guys that have done well here and have shown a lot of speed, it's a real, bit of a psychological edge to carry into next season, knowing you've got a race like this under your belt.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. So, for some reason, the end of the results doesn't show up for me. Not too sure why, but yeah, it was really that took the win in the end. Brendan in 2nd, Larkin in 3rd, Carmentalis in 4th, Calvin in 5th. Funky Chicken ended up finishing in 6th, right at the end of that. As annoying as it is, I couldn't get the rest of the results from that. But yeah, what a race that was in the end. I believe, I can't remember who it was that ended up finishing 7th in the end, but I think it was Diamond, sorry, in 7th, Gary in 8th. So, yeah, what a race that was in the end, Dan. And I said, to count that off for the pre-season race. Obviously, we had that on with June and Nolan right at the end of that. We could probably just quickly avoid that one. But, yeah, that was a cracking race in the end.
Yeah, I think we certainly saw better standards of driving than we did in last season's race at USA, I think it's fair to say. So, good job from everyone. And yeah, I guess now the only thing we can really do is, digest this race, analyse it. We'll have a look, see if there's any changes. I know that there are 2 drivers in the D3 race that really stood out, so maybe we could see a couple of changes. As far as I could see, though, in terms of raw pace, I can't really say there's any outliers. I think we've done quite well here.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think, as I said, we may have a little bit of a shift with one or two people, but I think that might be it for the divisions. Obviously, if there are any changes, then we'll update you for that for next week as well. So, yeah, in fact, I've just found out at the end of the race, Funky Chicken ran out of fuel. So he could have jumped up another position on Calvin, but running out of fuel, he ended up finishing in 6th in the end instead of 5th. So very unfortunate for him, but I suppose things can happen like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we are doing. I don't know if we are doing podium interviews. I'm not too sure because I know it's only the pre-season race. But I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Well, I assumed we weren't, and I didn't bother inviting people, so I guess that's on me. But
we'll miss out for tonight. But obviously for next week, for the start of the season, then of course we will go ahead and do some podium interviews. But yeah, that is it for the pre-season race for this evening around Austin, USA. Thank you everyone for tuning in for tonight. Of course, make sure you do catch the PC League on Friday at 8 o'clock by Luke Etheridge, and then Division 1, 3 and 4 at 6:30 p.m. GMT. It says BST on the graphic, but it's actually GMT with, as I said, with Montana and James Head for Division 1, Commentators and Chess Games for Division 3, and for Division 4, Ariel Nolan and XL Tinkan, and then Division 2 and Division 5 at 8:10 p.m. GMT, of course, with myself and Daka for Division 2, and Killer Blue and QV Alpaca for Division 5. Thank you to everyone for tuning in for tonight, and we'll catch you guys next week for round number 1 around the MLR circuit.